I don't want to believe that they are ready.
Ogbechie is the Group Managing Director of RainOil Limited, which he founded in 1997. He has over 30 years of direct sales, marketing, and operations experience within the oil and gas space. Over the last 2 decades, he has directly overseen the growth of the group's operations across the entire downstream value chain, comprising 3 ultra-modern petroleum product storage depots, that is, 50 million liter capacity multi-product depots in Okara, Delta State, Calabar, Cross River State, and Ijegun Egba, Lagos State, and 8,000 metric ton LPG storage facility in Ijegun, Lagos State, over 100 retail outlets spread across the country, over 100 petroleum product tank trucks, and over 40 LPG trucks for efficient delivery of products to RainOil's network of stations and customers across the country. In his capacity as Group Managing Director, he oversees a staff strength of over 1,200. Dr. Gabriel Ogbechie pioneered the petroleum product bulk storage investment in the Okara axis of Delta State, which is today a critical hub for petroleum product supply in the country. He is a graduate of production engineering from the University of Benin, Nigeria, and holds an honorary doctorate degree of technology management from Novena University, Nigeria. In line with his drive for service excellence and self-development, he has attended several management courses locally and abroad. He is a pioneer member of the Lagos Business School Owner Manager Program. Being a man of many parts and a strong believer of giving back to his roots, he has supported the following initiatives through the company: the Gabriel Ogbechie Foundation in Delta State, which provides scholarships to undergraduate community healthcare services as well as youth employment initiative; the annual RainOil Lawn Tennis Tournament, which holds annually in Lagos, promoting youth and sports development in Nigeria; financial support to orphanages in Lagos and Abuja; provision of physical infrastructure and public amenities in local communities in Delta State; medical outreaches to schools in host communities; dedicated employment opportunities to youth in host communities. Among his many hobbies is playing lawn tennis, which he is very passionate about. He is married to Godry and they are blessed with 3 children. House on the Rock. Please make welcome Dr. Gabriel Ogbechie.
Put your hands together. Put your hands together. You were clapping like you didn't come to church with your hands. Appreciate the grace of God upon this great man. God bless you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, church. First and foremost, let me appreciate Pastor Kosfeni Udoka and his very lovely wife for this privilege and opportunity to stand before you this evening. I do not take this for granted. Let us pray. In Jesus' name. Amen. Father, I thank you. Father, I worship you. Father, I exalt and I glorify your holy name. This evening, I stand before you in all humility. Father, use me to bless your people. Let every word that comes forth from my mouth be according to your will. Father, all glory be unto you. On my own, I have done nothing. On my own, I have achieved nothing. Everything I have achieved, everything I have done is by your grace. And to you be all the glory. In Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Please take your seat. My name is Gabriel Ogbechie. I'm the Group Managing Director of RainOil Limited. RainOil is a company that plays in the downstream space of the Nigeria oil and gas industry. I've been on this journey now for almost 10 years. For the past 29, 30 years, I've essentially played in the downstream space of the Nigeria oil and gas industry. But I've run RainOil for 25 straight years. It's a company we started essentially from the scratch, from what we call ground zero, as most other companies tend to start. But by the grace of God, we've grown it over the past 25 years to what it is today, that today I can say RainOil is a very, 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 very prominent company in the downstream space of the Nigeria oil and gas industry. We own 3 tank farms, one in Ogara, one in Calabar, one in Lagos. We have an 8,000 metric ton LPG facility. We have more than 100 petrol stations spread across this country, all over the country, even though when I come to Asaba, which happened to be my territory, I see a lot of people who tend to think that we are largely an Asaba-based company, which I find very funny. And we provide direct employment to more than 1,200 Nigerians and counting. I have a degree in production engineering from the University of Benin, and that essentially is my background. This evening, I will be talking on a topic, managing and overcoming business challenges. Managing and overcoming business challenges. I will look at this topic today essentially from 3 broad outlines. The first will look at the current economic realities in the country today. 2 will look at what I call the key business challenges. And 3, most importantly, what are the strategies for overcoming business challenges? Current economic realities, our economic overview. The impact of the pandemic on the Nigerian economy was very, very significant. Economy contracted by 1.92% in 2020. In 2020, at the height of the lockdown, when the lockdown started, if I recall correctly, about March 2020, when Mr. President put the nation into lockdown, initially for the first 2 weeks, a lot of us sat down at home for 2 weeks, believing that immediately after those first 14 days, things will go back to normal. I found it very strange waking up in the morning and having to do nothing. How do you just wake up and do nothing? 2 weeks passed. Yet another 2 weeks. Yet another 2 weeks. You know, we were lucky, for those of us who are in the oil sector, that when the lockdown started, federal government created an exception, or made an exception of the oil sector, because they call the oil sector essential services. So we were open all through. At the height of the pandemic, we lost 50% of our sales as a company. Naturally, I didn't like it. I was complaining. But one day, I was driving on Ozumbambadi Way in Lagos, and my eyes caught Radisson Blue Hotel, a 5-star hotel in Lagos. It was under lock, key, chain, padlock, everything. And I said, somebody owns this business. I have lost 50% and I'm complaining. This man has lost everything. I'm saying my sales have gone down by 50%. This man's sales is 0. One of those days, I was also privileged to fly out of the airport. I had to make a trip to Abuja. And as I was taxiing just taxiing to go and take off, I looked out and I saw planes upon planes upon. The planes didn't even have where to park. Every single plane was grounded. And I said, human beings own these planes. They've lost everything. So when they say, so 2 things. One, you thank God for little mercies. Most times we wake up and we complain when indeed we have so much to thank God for. So when they say the economy contracted by 1.92% in 2020, you understand exactly what this economy went through in 2020. First half 2021, we've seen the GDP grow by 2.7% year on year. But with 3 consecutive growths in GDP last year, Nigeria essentially exited recession. Now, the problem here is that we are seeing a GDP growth of 2.7%. That is pretty low for the kind of population that we have, but I will come to that. Oil sector contributed 7.42%, while the non-oil sector contributed 92.5% in second quarter 2021. Now, let me speak to that a little bit. When you talk to a lot of people, they will tell you Nigeria is an oil-dependent economy. I say no. Oil actually accounts for less than 10% of our GDP. Services, agriculture account for a very, 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 very significant chunk of what we do in this country. The only problem is that oil accounts for more than 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. While oil accounts for less than 10% of our GDP, it accounts for more than 90% of our foreign exchange earnings. That's essentially the only thing we do for export to earn dollars. Now, for an import-dependent economy like Nigeria, you now understand that anything that happens to oil, the entire economy goes into a hiccup. So that is the how vital oil is to our economy, but Nigeria economy is not oil dependent. Now, IMF has forecasted that the Nigerian economy will grow by 1.5% in 2021. Now, when you have an economy that is growing by 1.5%, but population is growing by 2.7%, then you know that you have an economy that is in trouble, because the growth in the economy is trailing the growth in population. So that means that on an annual basis, more people are sliding into poverty. And that explains why today Nigeria is actually the poverty capital of the world. Unemployment rate today is more than 33.3%. We are trailing behind South Africa, Namibia. 33% of Nigerians are unemployed. Now, what that means is that 1 in every 3 eligible Nigerian who wants a job doesn't have a job. 1 in 3. That is scary. Now, we are not even talking of people who are underemployed. We are talking of people who are just straight unemployed. Now, we still have a huge number of people who are underemployed. I have a degree, I have a master's degree, I don't have a job, I'm riding keke, I don't have a job, I'm doing some other low-level job elsewhere just to keep body and soul together. Nigeria recorded a trade deficit of 5.8 trillion in first half 2021. You have a trade deficit because your export is, say, 8 trillion naira, your import is 13 trillion naira. We are importing more than we are exporting. For us to fix this country, we need to flip that. It's like consuming more than you're producing. That is a recipe for poverty. We need to export more than we import. And that is why Naira today is struggling. Naira is struggling because we're not producing anything. We're importing everything from China. We're importing everything from anywhere except manufacture locally. I can talk on that some other time. Inflation today is 17.01%, up from 15% in December 2020. So inflation has a very steep positive gradient. Official exchange rates, CBN says it's about 411 naira to the dollar. Parallel market today is anything between 570 to 585 if you see the dollar. Now, what are the key business challenges? Nigeria is ranked 131 out of 189 countries in 2020, according to the World Bank Ease of Doing Business. 131 out of 189. Nigeria is not one of the easiest places to do business. The ease of doing business, from registering your business to trying to get basic support to be able to run your business. I will speak to just one thing, You know, if you run a business, there's one thing called leverage. There's one thing called leverage. Every business needs leverage to be able to scale. Now, let me explain what leverage is. Madam, what's your name? Chinwe. Let's imagine that Chinwe wants to go into, Chinwe is into, let me say she's into restauranting. She has 50 million naira. She has 50 million naira. So with 50 million naira, instead of trading with the 50 million naira, she can use the 50 million, build a restaurant. So she owns a restaurant now. But she can take that restaurant back to a financial institution, pledge it to a financial institution, and get back her 50 million in cash. Have you seen she's created value now? She has 50 million. She builds the restaurant, so she owns a restaurant. She gives the restaurant to a financial institution and does what? Take back 50 million. So at this point, she has the restaurant, she has 50 million. That's some scale. And with that, it's easier for her to do what? To scale her business. Now, for her to be able to build that restaurant and give that restaurant to a financial institution to get leverage, she needs what on that property? She needs a C of O. How many of you here have tried to get a C of O? Hello? How many people have tried to get C of O? Now, from state to state, you begin to understand how difficult such a very simple process has been made to be. And that is one thing that most businesses actually need. For those of us who do business in the southwestern part of the country, I don't want to get too specific here. It's like the camel walking through the eye of the needle. But thank God for those of us who live and do business in Delta State. One of the great things the Delta State administration has done is actually to simplify that process. And our brothers across the Niger will tell you that it is far easier to get a C of O here than it is to get a C of O across the Niger. Now, these are the things that actually speak to the ease of doing business, just as an example. Another one is access to finance. When businesses are small, one thing they actually need is finance. Finance is the oxygen with which businesses need to be able to operate. Another one is foreign exchange exposure. The biggest elephant in the room today, for those of us who do business, is foreign exchange. If you are into any business that has to do with importation, foreign exchange exposure is a massive problem. Now, I will tell you something. For business people, the challenge is not the exchange rate. It's not the challenge is not whether Naira is trading at 500 to the dollar or 800 to the dollar or 300 to the dollar. That's not the problem. The problem is whatever the rate is, can we be certain about it? Can I be sure that if I buy dollar at 500 and import my goods and sell the product, that when the time comes to pay my supplier, having realized Naira, that naira, I can still get dollar at that 500 to buy. That's the problem. Hello? So that is a bigger problem than what the absolute exchange rate is. So even if exchange rate is 800 naira, of course, I don't wish it gets to that point. But even if it is 800 naira for academic purposes, can we be sure it is 800 naira? That is the problem. So we are seeing businesses today, especially businesses who are into importation, essentially losing so much value, being wiped out because of foreign exchange exposure. Of course, we have challenges with infrastructure deficit, electricity, transportation. Transportation, I have a huge fleet of trucks. You know, one day I was in Kano and I was in Abuja rather, and I was discussing with a friend of mine, the man who owns AA Rano. You know, I call him Alaji. We're discussing, and he asked me a very simple question. He said, Gabriel, have you ever come to Abuja by road from Lagos? I said, no. He said, Gabriel, if you travel by road, you will sympathize with these truck drivers. That the roads are terrible. Yet, we have to move petroleum products by road across the country. So if the infrastructure is not good, your maintenance cost goes off the hook. And most importantly, the wear and tear and the propensity for accidents becomes very, very high. Unfortunately, businesses have to absorb this cost. I was in the US. I came back from New York just about a week ago. While in New York, I mean, something I don't do in Nigeria. I love to drive, actually. I love to drive. I love to be behind the wheel. Give me a good car. I'm ready to drive from here to Kano. In the US, I mean, I drove 7 hours from New York to Armenia to Syracuse. My wife and I were enjoying the ride. In some places, it was 2 lanes. In some places, it was 4 lanes. In some places, the road would just open up. 7 lanes on both sides. And I was analyzing the traffic with my wife, telling her why at some places it will be 2 lanes because of the quantum of traffic, why in some places it has to be 4 lanes. Because they've done the analysis, what I call queuing theory. How many of you here have heard queuing theory? The queuing theory, arrival rate, service rates, which actually determines what the size of the road will be. But from here, just to drive to Benin or to drive to Lagos, now project. There are challenges of reaching customers. Time, I don't think, is going to be our friend today. But we have to run. There are challenges of reaching customers, multiple regulatory agencies, government agencies. You're running a business, all kinds of agencies will swoop on you that at the end of the day, you don't even know which agency is actually regulating your business. There are multiple taxation. You run a small business, you're struggling to just to eke out a living. And all kinds of government agencies will be on your small case. That even your entire capital, if you're not sure, is not enough to pay all the levies that they will put on that small business. It is a challenge. High interest rates today, 17%, 16%. If your business has scale, if your business doesn't have scale, only God knows how much is being charged. Abroad, interest rates is as low as 3%. You know, it's actually very difficult to run and grow a business with a very high interest rates that are being charged in this country today. Then you have rising inflation, and then inconsistent policies, trade regulations, and stuff like that. Now, what are the strategies for overcoming business challenges. Strategies for overcoming business challenges. Number 1, recover revenue and track profit. Recover revenue and track profit. Targeted campaigns to win, retain loyal customers, develop improved customer experiences, price flexibility based on new data. You know, I tell people, you are only in business when your income exceeds your expenditure. If your income does not exceed your expenditure, you have only created activity. You are just busy. So if you are running a business, you must keep your eye on the bottom line. Are you making a profit? Profit is the primary essence of business. So you must track your profit and defend it with everything that you have. That you don't joke about it. If you are running a business, you must defend your bottom line. Reallocate spending to proven growth sources. You know, when you run a business, you can't, you can't remain static. You must ensure that you are allocating your resources to the areas of that business where you can get growth. Automate your processes to free up sales rep to sell more because, as I said, profit is the primary goal of any business. That is your bottom line. 2, cash flow management. You must manage your cash flow. In the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, cash flow has become very, very important. You know, identify available options for cash optimization and maximization. I remember when I was a kid and I was growing up in Onitsha. I grew up in Onitsha. Then I used to go a lot to Ose Market. For those of you who know Onitsha well. For anybody in Asaba, I expect him to know Onitsha well. In Ose Market, just going around Ose Market, there was something I used to see in some shops that I found very instructive as a kid. It was a poster. That poster had 2 people. One was a very fat man with so much cash around him and looking very prosperous. And he says, I sell for cash. Another one was a very lean man, looking very famished. And he says, I sell on credit. As a kid, he left an indelible mark on me, on the need for what I call today liquidity. How liquid is your business? Is your business liquid? You know, accountants like to speak big English. Accountants. Who is an accountant here? If you're an accountant, raise your hand. You know, accountants like to speak big English. They like things like depreciation, amortization, accrual, such fancy English. We businessmen like to keep it simple. Show me the money.
Thank you.
Leave this grammar. Can you show me the money? You know, guy, what's your name? The guy in maroon there. Last to the, you're looking away. What's your name? Paul. What do you do? Paul is an artist. Who trades here? Who is a trader here? What do you trade? Spices. Okay, fine. What's your name? Uche trades in spices. So Uche has gone to buy goods of 10 million naira. So he's bought goods of 10 million naira. Then he sells his goods on credit for 12 million naira. So he has written an invoice, but he sold it on credit. He bought it for 10 million, he sold for 12. How much profit has he made? He's made a profit of 2 million. So as far as accountants are concerned, Uche has 2 million naira in profit. But he wants to pay for something, 50,000 naira. He's made profit of 2 million. They bring an invoice of 50,000 naira. He begins to speak English. There is no money. Is there money? There is no money because it's not liquid. He sold on credit. So, it's important in business that you track that liquidity. As much as possible, stay away from credit. Sorry, I'm not saying in businesses at some point you must give credit. Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. At some point you must give credit. But guide it as much as possible and stay liquid. And that's one thing I love about the oil business. You drive into a fuel station, you want to buy fuel, you have to pay cash. There's no credit. If you're my friend and I'm in the station, you drive into the station, as they begin to fill your tank, I walk away. I go and look for something to gist while watching you with the corner of my eyes. When I see that you have settled your account well, then I can come back to you and actually complain why they collected money from you. Cash flow management is very, very important. Free up working capital by tightly managing expenses. At this point of COVID-19, when the economy has gotten into what I would call a tailspin, watch your expenses very closely. Cut out the non-essential services and protect your liquidity. This is not the time to get into non-essential services, which is why I say focus on less capital-intensive projects that can improve free cash flow very quickly. Number 3, manage overheads. Manage overheads. Minimize your cost of operations without necessarily compromising on the quality. Look beyond layoffs. Some layoffs may be inevitable in a downturn. However, companies that emerge from a crisis in the strongest shape relied less on layoffs to cut costs and learn more on operational improvements. You know, I tell people that the most important resource any organization has is the human capital. The most important resource any organization has is the human capital. It's not the assets of petrol stations or asset of manufacturing plant or the equipment you have that is the most important resource you have. No. The most important resource you have are your staff. And you must guide that as much as possible. When an economy goes into I don't want to use the word recession because it doesn't have to be a recession. When the economy goes into a downward spin or a downward spiral, the last thing you should do is to lay off staff, not the first thing. I see people that once they get into a challenge, they ask staff to go. I say no. As a matter of fact, staff cost is not a very major cost. If you actually look at your financials very well, you will realize that staff cost is not that much of a material cost. Because you see, no matter how smart somebody is, when you hire somebody into your organization, there's always that learning curve. Hello? There's always a learning curve. What line of business are you in? Where do you work, my guy? Yeah, yes. He's into business consulting. So just imagine, he's into business consulting. And then a first-class graduate joins his organization, for example. No matter how smart that staff is, he must spend some time to try to understand what they do and how they do it. It's a learning curve before he begins to add value. So the person has been there for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. He now knows what to do. So when he comes to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, he doesn't wait for the boss to tell him what to do. He knows what to do. And then things get tight a little bit. You let the person go. The next person you're going to bring, we still have to go through that learning curve. So that is why at times like this, when businesses get challenged, keep your best resource. Keep them. Because once things go through this and the economy recovers, you will be ahead of the curve in that recovery process when compared to those who let their staff to go. Now, companies with a high level of debt are especially very vulnerable during a recession. If you run a business, keep an eye on your debt. You know, one funny thing about businesses is that when you run a successful business, banks actually begin to chase you to take money. How many people have experienced it here? I get surprised when I see people and they say banks are not ready to lend. I say, no. Banks are in the business of lending. If banks don't lend, they can't make money. But you need to have a good business for banks to be able to give you money. But that is a dangerous place to be in. It's a very dangerous place to be in because when you run a good business and banks are begging you to take money, that is the time to become very careful. Listen, let me tell you one thing about money. When you if you go to a bank now and you borrow 100 million, the fact that you can write a check of 20 million and it goes through, it doesn't mean you have money. You don't have money. It's when you trade with that 100 million and you make 2 million naira and the money now becomes 102 million. 100 million belongs to the bank, 2 million belongs to you. You have to live like a man who has 2 million naira, not as a man who has 102 million naira. As a matter of fact, you have to live like a man who has less than 2 million naira. That is the mentality. But I see a lot of people, because they can write a check and the bank pays, they suddenly begin to behave as if they have money when they don't have money. You need to have the right mentality. But most importantly, when you carry huge debts in your business, when the economy gets into a shock, you're the first to suffer. Because at that point, your debt spirals out of control very quickly. You know, when banks lend you money and they say interest rate is 13% or 15%, what the banks don't tell you is that what they are giving you is compound interest. How many of you here have realized that? You pay interest on interest. So if you borrow 100 million naira, you're paying 13%. At the end of the year, your interest is not 13 million. It's not a straight 13% of 100 million. It's 13% of 100 million every month. So at the end of the next month, you're paying 13% on 100 million plus 13%. The next month is 13 million on 100 million on 13 and 13. So it just keeps compounding like that. And that is why at the end of the year, you may just realize that you're owing 150 million. And you say, where did this come from? No, it didn't come from anywhere. It's compound interest. You need to keep your eye on it. Manage your overheads. Number 4, avoid underpricing. avoid underpricing. While being wary of competition, you must consider your margins very carefully. Don't be afraid to charge for quality and review your pricing strategy regularly. Don't underprice your goods. Because, there's something I always say, and that is that turnover is vanity. My turnover is 100 billion naira. Hey, congratulations. But I've made a loss of 50 million naira. My turnover is 50 million naira, but I've made a profit of 20 million. Let me ask you a question. A company that turns over 10 billion naira, but makes a loss of 50 million, and a company that turns over 100 million naira and makes a profit of 30 million, which one is better? It's the second one. Turnover is vanity. It means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. Who gets excited over your turnover? Who can tell me? It's the banks who get excited over your turnover. You see, that guy is a big customer. His turnover is 2 billion naira every month. That's a lot of money. Congratulations. You know why? They used to call it commission on turnover. Now they call it account maintenance fees. The same thing in two different ways. When they were charging COT, we complained. Why are you charging me commission on turnover? Then they scrapped it. No more commission on turnover. Commission on turnover is now free. And then they came back with account maintenance fee. It's all the same thing. It's a function of your turnover. Turnover is vanity. Profit is sanity. But cash is king. Your turnover is vanity, is vain. I'm not interested in your turnover. But your profit is sanity. How much profit are you making? But most importantly, your cash is king. How much cash do you have? And that cash is a function of, are you selling on credit or are you selling for cash? Are you able to meet your obligations as they fall due? It is only cash that can make you meet those obligations as they fall due. So you need to guide your bottom line as if everything depends on it. Guide your bottom line. Don't underprice. Don't get into that turnover game because you just want to make a sale. If it doesn't make sense, leave it. Implement an effective sales and marketing strategy. Implement an effective sales and marketing strategy. The lack of a strategy and a means of assessing its performance is a recipe for failure. What's your strategy? You can't run a business without a strategy. Every business has its own trade secrets, which is why I find it very funny. My friend there, Uche is into spices. And Uche is making a lot of money. How many of you here know Uche is making a lot of money? Uche is making money. Claim it, Uche. Amen. Uche is making money. But because Uche is making money, my friend here, the accountant, what's your name? Peter. Peter sees that Uche is making money from spices. Peter wants to get into the spice business. What Peter doesn't know is that the spice business has its own trade secrets. It has taken Uche 10 years to realize what those secrets are. Where to source the spice, when to source it, how much to source it, when to sell it, when not to sell, when to buy and hold stock and wait. Even when the market seems to be moving, Uche will say, no, this is not the time to sell. We'll sell it next month. by next month, there are people coming from Kaduna. We know them. It's trade secrets. But those trade secrets come with strategy. What's your strategy? This morning I said something. I said, because a poor strategy or a mediocre strategy, excellently executed, is better than an excellent strategy poorly executed. What's your strategy? And what's your execution of that strategy? Have a strategy. The Bible says, write your vision, make it plain. Write it. Study it. Implement it. You know, for those of you who follow football, and I'm sure a lot of people here follow football. When a coach is going to play a match, City is playing Liverpool. Tough match. The managers come with their strategy. The game is over 90 minutes. The fact that after the first 15 minutes, City falls 1 goal behind, the manager doesn't panic. The fact that they've gone 1 goal behind does not mean his strategy is wrong. Somebody may just have made a mistake. He sticks with his strategy because he knows over a 90 minutes period, his strategy will come true. So when you have a strategy, don't panic to change the strategy just because it looks as if something is not going according to plan. No, it doesn't mean your strategy is wrong. It just means you need to be patient because businesses are long-term. Businesses are marathon. Business is a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a 100-meter dash. That is why you see businesses, 25 years, they are still thriving. 40 years, they are still thriving. It doesn't mean that for the entire 25 years, it's been rosy, rosy, rosy. It doesn't mean that every 12 months in a year is rosy, rosy, rosy. Once in a while, you get into a storm. But regardless of the fact that you get into a storm, does not mean that the business is going to collapse. I always use this analogy. It's like you're in a jumbo jet. You're in a Boeing 747. You're flying from Lagos to London. It's a 6-hour flight. It's just cruising. You're sleeping peacefully. Once in a while, the plane will just get into turbulence and it will shake. The pilot will say what? Fasten your seatbelt. Fasten your seatbelt means, guy, we are in a turbulence. So you put your seatbelt. No matter how rough that turbulence is, it's not bringing down the plane. After 20, 30 minutes, you will do what again? You get out of the turbulence and you get back into your cruise and you will remove your seatbelt. That is the way business is, and that is the way strategy is. Have a proper strategy. Retain your customers because customer retention is at the heart of any sales and marketing strategy. Digitalize sales channels. Reskill sales force to support remote selling. I mean, with the advent of COVID-19, a lot of things have moved online, have moved remotely, and you need to come up with a strategy to be able to sell online. If you're not online today, for most businesses, I'm sure you know a lot of such businesses will suffer. Build resilience. Make processes as efficient as possible. Reduce waste and drive revenue. Build resilience. You know, strategize how to make your company resilient to future shocks. Your company must be resilient to future shocks because shocks will come. Shocks will come. But how much resilience, how much capacity have you kept within the business to ensure that when those shocks come, you will be able to survive it? In 2019, a lot of companies, towards the end of 2019, companies, organizations, including churches, when they were planning for 2020, when they were having all the retreats and strategy sessions on how the business is going to run, how they are going to grow, business and grow numbers in 2020. How many people foresaw COVID? If you are in this hall and you foresaw COVID, raise your hand. How many people foresaw COVID? But 3 months into the year, we all are home. Now, that's a shock. But should that shock take you down? The answer is no. The only way that shock will not take you down is that you build capacity and build resilience within your business. You know, the Bible tells us, 1 will chase 1,000 and 2 will chase what? 10,000. You need to build capacity. As you make money, keep your earnings in the business. Keep your money in the business. Tony Montana in this movie, Scarface, says don't get high on your own supplies. Don't get high on your own supplies. As when you run a business, as you're making money, leave that money in the business. The business must have capacity. The business must have liquidity. As you make profit, that's not the time to go to town. Big boy has arrived. No. Keep your business liquid. Keep your business and keep capacity within the business. So when you have capacity within the business, you are able to take advantage of opportunities as they come. And you are also able to take shocks if they come. We pray they don't come. As Christians, we pray they don't come. But even when they come, or even if they come, we must be able to have that resilience to be able to survive it. Divest from non-core businesses where possible to help sharpen strategic focus and strengthen the core one. Now, when businesses run into turbulence, that is the time to stay focused on what your core is. You can't be all things to all. You can't be all things to all men. That is the time to divest from what we call non-core businesses. What is your every business must have their core. What is your core? The core of RainOil, for example, we are a downstream oil and gas company. But make no mistake about it. I have my hands on so many other things. But what's our core? Our core is we are primarily an oil and gas company. That is what we do. So when shocks come and things are getting out of hand, that is the time to focus on your what? On your core and divest from non-core businesses to help you build resilience. Remain agile. Remain agile. Keep your business agile and responsive to market changes as it continues to grow. Keep your business agile and responsive to market changes as it continues to grow. And remain innovative. Consistently look out for areas or markets for expansion and growth. Remain innovative. You know, when you run a business, you must keep asking yourself and keep finding new ways of adding value. Of adding value to your customers, of adding value to your business. Because the only thing that is constant in life is change. Change will come. Customer taste will come. Customers' expectations will come. When those changes come, it must not catch you napping. That is not the time to complain. There is no medal for complaining. Because as we say, the customer is always right. The customer can be naggy, the customer can be, I don't want to use the word, but you know what? The customer is right. It is where he decides to spend his money that is right. It is his decision. So you must remain innovative to keep getting the customers. Decentralized organizations are mostly better able to adjust to changing conditions through delegated decision making further down the hierarchy. Even if companies decide not to decentralize, they can try to do a better job of gathering inputs from employees at all levels when making decisions. I tell my staff, the company where I worked before I started RainOil, my boss then, God bless his soul, he used to say, Gabriel, a company is like a boat. We are all in this boat. So just imagine, Gabriel, we are in this boat and we are paddling. While we are paddling, imagine that somebody is fetching water and trying to capsize the boat. Gabriel, which one is better? Is it better to pick this man and throw him overboard so that he drowns alone, or we allow him to capsize the whole boat? Which one is better? Is to throw him overboard. Say, Gabriel, it's better to throw him overboard. Now, the lesson there is that on that boat, just like the company, both the owner of the business and the employees, you are all stakeholders in that business. Everybody has a stake in the business. So everybody must come up with ideas on how to keep this boat afloat. Because when the boat is afloat, it is good for the owner, it is good for the employees. We are all stakeholders. The owner does not have a monopoly of knowledge. He's one man. So when they go for a meeting, the owner has an opinion. When I'm talking to my staff, especially in management meetings, when I say something, I will tell them, excuse me, this is just my opinion. This is not a decision. Can you tell the difference? Because most times when the chief executive says something, people tend to hang on to it and want to run with it. I say, no, I have just expressed my opinion. Please express your opinion. The only thing is that when everybody finishes expressing their opinion, somebody may come up with a superior argument to mine. And then I will agree with him and then decide that is the way we will do it. Once we now take that decision, it now becomes my decision. Because I have to take responsibility for it. If anything goes wrong, I take responsibility. That's not the time to say, but Peter, you see, I told you now. I told you this thing will not work. This was your suggestion. It's no longer Peter's suggestion. It's my decision. Can you tell the difference? It's my decision. So you must carry your staff along and make them feel and know that everybody has a stake. I say this all the time. In RainOil today, I have 1,200 people working for RainOil and counting. And I tell them, I don't have a right to ruin this organization. I don't. I may own the company. 1,200 people have staked their livelihood on this business. I don't have a right to ruin it. I can't. So you must act responsibly. It's a responsibility that comes with leadership. Knowing that everybody has a stake in the business. So, gather input from employees at all levels when making key decisions. Employee engagement and training. Retain and develop critical talent and capabilities. Undertake a skill gap analysis to determine skills required to meet business objectives and ensuring training. Ensure great transparency with employees to encourage innovation and build trust in the company and in fellow employees. And then finally, keep the channels of communication open. Keep the channel of communication open. Employees must know that they have a stake in the business. Always carry out a skill gap analysis. What level of skill do you need to run the business? Especially for businesses that are started and they begin to scale. The skill set you need to start a business when the business is very strong, very young rather, it's not the same skill set you need to run the business when the business becomes very large. As the business begins to grow, also bring in people who have the skill set to help you run the business at that level. And as you're bringing in people who can help you run the business at that level, you also need to scale yourself. You need to redevelop yourself. You need to sharpen the sword. You need to go for training. I never stop going for training. Never. Every year, at the beginning of every year, as a rule, every staff must go for training. So there's a training calendar. When you're going for training, when you are going for training, when me, the group MD, is going for training, I must train myself. Because I can't lead if I don't have the skill set to act as a leader. So they must follow me, not because I am their employer, or not just because I'm their employer, but because I'm also showing those skill sets that shows that I have a right to be in that position. It's very, very important. Keep the channel of communication open. You must be open to your staff. They must know if you're going to take any decision that impacts on them, let them know. Your timer is, let's keep it a bit consistent. Succession planning. Consciously reduce dependencies on the founding team. As the organizations grow, delegation and succession planning becomes very critical. Design a recruitment and growth strategy around building a leadership team of intrapreneurs. Retain top talent with the perks and top tier salaries, exciting projects. You know, when you're building businesses worth billions of naira, keeping talent is still a leading risk across business organizations. As you build an organization and as the organization grows with time, one critical thing every organization needs at all levels, actually, succession planning. You have to do what-if scenarios. What if? What if this happens? At the end of the day, we're all mortal. You know, God promises us long life, good health. God promises us everything. But I'm yet to see in the Bible where God says we will live forever. So, you must keep doing what I call what-if scenarios. If this happens, if you even decide that you're burnt out and you want to take a walk, you just want to go and start playing golf every morning, who can run this business? They are tough questions, but you know, leadership comes with a lot of responsibilities. And those responsibilities is a responsibility to be able to ask yourself the tough questions and demand an answer from yourself. To look yourself in the mirror, in the deep recess of your bedroom, and ask yourself those questions most people can't look you in the face and ask you. And demand an answer from yourself. It's very, very important. Ladies and gentlemen, running a business takes a lot of responsibility. You must be able to ask and you must be able to answer the very, very tough questions. You know, at every key position, when the organization grows, you need to create what I call redundancies. A bit of redundancy. That redundancy is so that if somebody drops the ball, somebody must be able to pick up that ball and run. Your organization must not run into a crisis just because somebody has left. No, no, no. No, it must never happen. Keep up with the market. Business conditions change, hence market research should be continuous to ensure informed decision making. Information sources can vary from published information, talking to key customers, suppliers, employees, and other business partners. And then stay and keep in touch with your key stakeholders. Keep up with the market. Business conditions will change. Customers' need will change. But you must keep up with the market. You must be able to adapt to these changes as they happen. Because like I said, businesses are marathon. Businesses, have you ever seen somebody who starts a business and then says, I just want to run this business for 3 years and pack it up? Have you ever seen anything like that? Oh, I want to run this business for 5 years and pack it up. You start the business, even though you start it small, you always want that business to do what? To outgrow you and outlive you, and you're able to pass that business to the generation coming after you. Now, the way, for example, for those of us in the oil and gas industry, the way we ran this business is 1990. It's not the way we ran it in year 2000. It's not the way we ran it in 2010. It's not the way we ran it in 2020. It's definitely not the way we are running it now. But as those changes have taken place, the businesses have survived. Why? Because we kept adapting to those changes as they come. And finally, you need to have what I call staying power. Staying power is what gets you going staying power is when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. On the street, we call it hustle while you wait. When nothing seems to be happening, you need to remain in the business. I tell people, when you are in paid employment, you work for Zenith Bank, or you work for Global's Bank, for example, and they say your salary is 6 million naira per annum. What it means is that every month you're paid 500,000. 500,000 in January, February, March. Businesses don't make money that way. When they say a business has made a profit of 120 million naira in a year, it does not mean every month that business makes 10 million naira. In January, you may make 20 million. In March, you may make 30 million. In April, you may lose 5 million. In May, you may lose 3 million. In June, you may make 40 million. The important thing is that at the end of the year, when you aggregate it, you've made 120 million. Staying power is what gets you going through those dry spells. Once in a while, you run into a dry spell, and it looks as if nothing is happening. At that point, you get tempted to say, I want to go back to where I am coming from. When I was in paid employment, I had food on my table. When I was in paid employment, I could do this. I thought this business was going to thrive. But you see, in the last 3 months, nothing has happened. Staying power is what will get you going during those periods. Because as we say, once you put your hand on the plow, there is no going back to Egypt. So you need staying power. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, it was Michael Jordan who says, obstacles don't have to stop you if you run into a wall. Obstacles don't have to stop you. If you run into a wall, don't turn around and give up. figure out how to climb it, go through it, or walk around it. By the grace of God, I believe that it will be well with us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't seem to be hearing your hands. Put the hands together.